All right, welcome back. This is going to be part 5 of our interior formatting with InDesign. And in this video, we are going to finally create that ebook. I showed you the issues that we had with what it looked like, not only in Adobe Digital Editions, but as well as in the Kindle app. So now we're going to correct those. And I did this the long way. These are things that I normally know how to correct before I create the ebook. But I did it this way just to show you what those issues are. So now let's begin correcting it. As we saw, the only light string that came in was this one. And that particular light string is just this one that I have placed on the title page. It's not on a master page. I just placed it there. That's the only reason why it came in, because what is important to know is that any elements that you have on the master pages, which is the Zane and the lights, do not get imported into the ebook. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is put those graphics in the ebook if you do want them. Some people choose not to do ornamentation in ebooks only because it increases the file size, and that's something you definitely want to know, because you want your file size as low as possible. And right now, it's morning, I can't talk. Our file size is almost 1600 kilobytes, so 1.6 megabytes. I prefer this to be 500 kilobytes. So we've got a lot of work to do to get the file size down, and we'll work on that outside of InDesign once we crack open the EPUB. So what we've got here, the first thing we've got to do is, I don't want to mess up my print book. So I am saving, I have my print file saved here. Let me add a couple of things here. Let's see, interior, let's see, cover design and interior formatting. I always like to include my name. Formatting, Stephanie Anderson, Jera Publishing. Okay, if you're not a cover designer and author, it's always courteous to give credit to whoever did the design work for your book. I don't require my authors to do it, but I love it when they do, and in most cases they do. So just always give a shout out to whoever did the work for your book. It just gives them, gives them happy vibes. So I'm giving myself happy vibes. Okay, so what we are going to do, we're going to save this. I'll export it again as a PDF for my ARC readers. Let's go ARC 1. We'll save that. Export. And then I got to do one quick thing before I screw it up. I didn't have it saved in the right place. All right, so now what we're going to do, at this point forward, I'm going to have two different documents. Okay, I'm going to have the ebook document and I'm going to have the print document. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this in my ebook folder, and I'm going to save it as Unwrap My Heart ebook. Save it. So now I know interior draft 01 is going to be for my interior, whereas ebook is going to be for my ebook. Now, I don't have a system when I do this. I just kind of do it. But I'm going to try to be really thorough and tell you everything. So it may be a bit jumbled, and then eventually I'll go back and redo these videos where it's going to make more sense, and I'll try to keep order. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am just going to get rid of my text variables. They'll still work, but I want to get rid of this one page. I'm getting rid of this information right here. I don't need this anymore. So I deleted that. That brought my copyright here. We don't want that, so we're actually going to just delete that text frame. Okay. All right. Which, hold on, I may have screwed up. Let's do it again. I am going to not delete this page because there's a page break there. And then we're going to come here and find where it's at. All right, now we're going to delete it. Okay, the reason why I did that is because that text frame ended right here. And so because I deleted that from here, I actually deleted the text and the text frame. So had this been linked to this next page, it wouldn't have completely deleted it. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I'm actually going to get rid of this. I'm not gonna put the book cover in the ebook like I did before. I'm actually going to do it my normal method. So that means I can get rid of these 2 blank pages. And what is important to know is that if we go back and look how this particular page imported, is we have this light string on a page by itself. The author names are more separated than what I want. And that's because right now, these are actually individual graphics. I was too lazy to cut my graphic, change around my graphic because the graphic is actually like this. So I cheated and I just repeated them and stacked them because I didn't want them like I have them on the cover page. So we can actually lump all of these graphics together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Control A, which selects everything on the page, and I'm going to group it. Okay, so now that I have all this grouped, it's going to come together as one graphic. Okay, one thing I am going to do is I'm just going to resize that so my little light gets cut off, and I'll probably just move this around so the blue and red are centered. Okay, because we don't have the bleeds here. So, for the ebook, there's no bleeds. All right, then what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this because we need to get it into a text frame, and right now it's just a place graphic. It's not in a text frame. So we actually want to put it in the text frame. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to cut it, then I'm going to come right here above Unwrap My Heart on the copyright page, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, now we can get rid of this blank page here, and that's going to move that page to the blank page. Now, ebooks, they do not matter what master page is on, because like I said, nothing comes in to your ebook from a master page. So we don't even need to worry about this. At this point, we could set, and this is what I do sometimes, we can set every single page to be a C, and then we can delete out all these master pages. Sometimes I do that because I like really clean files. So it's a little, it can be a little ridiculous. All right, now what we need to do, we do not want this title page to come up on the same page as the copyright. So we need to add some sort of break between the two. We also need to add a paragraph style to this graphic because right now where my graphic is placed, it has a copyright paragraph style. We don't want that. We want it to be image, okay? And then I'm going to actually center this. And so it comes through centered on the ebook. And then I'm actually going to redefine my image because I want it to be, all my images to be centered. And then if I add in another image, we may need to set a new style and call it image left. All right, so now I know I want to break between this particular image and where the copyright page starts. So I'm going to just hit enter here. And I am going to assign this little line, this little paragraph mark right here with this break tag that I have in my paragraph styles. The only purpose that this break tag has, you will not need it in your print file at all. It is only for ebook purposes. And the break tag, the only thing out of all of the style menu that is important is what's down here called export tagging. And the only thing that matters is the split document, EPUB only. So wherever we put a break tag, my ebook is going to split. What that means is, earlier I mentioned that an ebook is basically a series of web pages. And what's going to happen is this first title page is going to be page 1 of my ebook. And then this Unwrap My Heart copyright page is going to be page 2. So I just created 2 separate HTML files for the ebook by including that break. So we're going to click on OK. And I know that we want another break here. So we are going to add another break. For the ebook, because I want to keep my file size low, I'm going to get rid of that. I don't need it for the ebook. It was just decorative. So we're going to delete that page. We're going to delete that page. We're going to keep the contents page. There are some extra text boxes there. This doesn't matter. I'm just going to fill it up the page. It doesn't matter. Also, I don't want the spaces in between 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm actually going to do is redefine the style. And that just helps with the spaces. Okay. And also, I'm keeping the chapter numbers here, but these are not really chapter numbers. I don't have them numbered in the actual book, but I'm going to keep them numbered for purposes of the table of contents. But I'm just going to add epilogue there. Okay. All right. So here's another blank page. We're going to delete this. Reason being I delete all blank pages is that InDesign, when it exports to the EPUB, it takes these, it thinks that there's something in these text frames, even though there's not, and it adds some extra code into the ebook. I will show you when we crack open the ebook, I will show you those areas to recognize. No matter how clean I try to make my document, I still manage to have some blank div tags throughout. So I'll show you where those are if we have any come through. But just always delete your blank pages because it doesn't matter with an ebook. Left, right doesn't matter. Okay. All right. So now what we've got is we have a break here. So we know that it should break going into the table of contents. I will tell you that there are some bugs in InDesign, and even when I've had a break here, for some reason, sometimes when they're separate text frames, it still puts them together. So when we export the first time, that's one of the first things I check. And even though I do have that break tag here, sometimes I have to come in here and add an extra break tag. I'm not going to do this now because sometimes InDesign works properly and it does put a break in. And the latest edition of InDesign may have corrected that bug, but for now I'm not going to add in that extra break tag. We may have to go back in and do it, but we'll see. All right, so I know I want another break right before here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit enter. I'm going to clear all the override. You'll see this little blue area. There's an override in there, but I'm going to clear it. Okay. Reason being is that when we have overrides, it brings in all this extra code into the ebook, and I don't want that for this particular one. I just want to get rid of the override and then call this break because I want it to break right here. All right, so now just going to do one quick thing. I'm not going to put this on the next page. Okay, so now we're good here. I'm not going to worry about adding a break here just yet because I'm going to show you how I do it. All right, so now I know I want my pages to have the little light up top. Then I want it to have chapter number, and then I want to have my little character name. So I'm going to actually pull this stuff off of the master page. Now I could go here to pages and click on chapter title and just copy this. But I'm going to show you how a quick little tool so you don't have to go into the master page to actually pick up these, because right now we can't select them because they're on the master page. So to pull it off the master page, you can hold Control Shift and then click on it. Okay, so now this one, whoops, this one is on this particular page, and then we can do the same with Zane, and now that one's off. Now it's still not going to come through properly because InDesign has a hierarchy of things. So what it's going to do, because this particular text frame is linked here, everything that's linked together in this text frame is going to come first in the ebook. So if I exported this as an ebook right now, this graphic and this graphic is going to come at the very end. We don't want that, okay? All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place this graphic within my within my text frame. So to do that, I'm going to come here. And I am going to call this ornament. I have a little miscellaneous. Under miscellaneous, I have ornament. And ornament is just centered. The main thing to look at is your tracking right here. I'm sorry, your leading. This is, it needs to be set to automatic. And so right here, when the number is in parentheses, it's set to automatic. Okay, don't select a number where your graphic is. And the reason being is that it's going to cut off your graphic if that leading is too small. All right, so now I am going to place that in. And this is ornament. Now, I want a page break before every ornament, okay? So now we have break that we know we want the ebook to break at. We're also going to tell it to break with ornament. So I'm going to edit the ornament, export tagging, and then I'm going to tell it to split document here. Now, there is a bug in InDesign. It may have been corrected. We'll have to see. But sometimes when you select split document within the style, it doesn't hold for some reason. I'm hoping they've fixed this bug because it'll drive you crazy. But what we'll do before we export to the EPUB, I'm going to show you another screen that's going to show you all of the paragraph styles where it's going to break at. So what I like to do is I'm going through an ebook. Whenever I'm setting things that I know I want to break in the ebook, I'll just make a list. And it's usually break, underscore break, and underscore ornament. And in some cases, when I don't have any ornaments in an ebook, it will be chapter title or chapter number. So, okay, so we're gonna do that. Now, the next thing is I currently have chapter numbers set to go to the next page. And here we don't need them because we have the ornament there. So we are going to remove that. We're going to tell those to go anywhere. And that should have brought it up, but it didn't, because we probably have a, okay, sizing, that's what it is. All right, let's go, and I'm just going to show you this. Let's see, we're going to drop the, what page are we on? Are we here? Yeah, okay. I have within this chapter number, if the reason why that didn't come up all together on the same page is because we have a bunch of keep options set for this. So for my chapter number style, I have a keep option for it to set with one line. Okay, so chapter number always keeps with the next line. And then this is chapter title, and it always keeps with the next line. So we didn't have enough information. There wasn't enough to pull everything up together. All right, now one thing that I know we're going to have to clean up in the ebook are all these chapter titles. I don't want to get rid of them because I need them for my navigation for the TOC. But I don't want double Zanes because I do want my graphic. So this is one of those things that we are going to have to correct in the ebook outside of InDesign. Okay, you don't have to design things this way, so you can come up with your own method. This is just me and how I work. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to do is for Zane, I'm going to make this an image, but I'm going to left align it, and I'm going to create a new style and call it underscore image left. Okay, then I'm going to place Zane. So we're going to have double Zanes initially, but we're eventually going to get rid of this chapter title Zane. Now for this image left, if I delete this out now, we're not going to have that nice little breathing room that I want between the first paragraph and the character name. So I need to add in space below this graphic, this style for this graphic. Okay. All right. So now we can actually remove this space for now, and it's not going to hurt anything. All right, so now in our, all right, so we've corrected all this stuff at the front. We're going to look at the drop cap and how everything is. So, and also look at this number 1. Because we have these set as auto numbers, it comes through as a number. That little chapter that we added before, it doesn't work. And if you look, they're not even numbered properly. So Braley's, which should be chapter 2, is 1 as well, and then chapter 3 is 1. So that's something, even though it's nice to use those auto numbers, they don't work in ebooks. So that's why most times I just come in and just write out the chapter. Okay, and now we need to remove the numbering feature to it so it doesn't do chapter 1, chapter 1. In that case, what it would look like in the ebook, it would be 1 period, and then chapter 1 would be spelled out. So we're going to redefine this. Now we just have to remember our numbering as we go along. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this little character style that we created for the quotation mark. Because as you can tell, if we go back to how it looks, let's go to that page, it looks bad. All right, so you can barely see it. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to remove that character style that we created for quotation marks. We're not going to preserve formatting, and we're not going to replace it with anything. We're just going to delete it, okay? And the reason why I had created that quotation mark to begin with is because this particular font that I have set for the drop cap doesn't have a quotation mark as a glyph. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're actually going to change the font for our drop cap because scripts are more difficult to look right. It makes it more difficult if you use a script for the drop cap to make look right in the ebook. Drop caps are very limited in ebooks, and no matter what you do, you cannot get them perfect across every single device. Some devices are going to drop them down a little bit. So some authors choose not to do drop caps at all. I personally, I like them, and I'm used to seeing them where they're slightly lower than they should be. Um, so, you know, to each their own. Um, all right, so now I'm just going to change this. I'm just going to make it the ITC Avant-Garde. So it's going to come through as a sans serif. I'm going to actually remove the tracking, and I'm going to click on OK. All right, so we already know that this came through as red and it came through as a sans serif, so we don't need to do anything to that all caps part. So we just needed to tweak the drop cap. All right, now the next thing is, you remember our indentation was really, really short. Okay, so what I do here is I bump up my indent for chapter text. Now like I mentioned before, there's two ways to do it. You can go in here and edit the style, go to indents and spacing, bump up that first line indent to 0.5, and it'll automatically update all the styles. Now, this looks bad, but for purposes of the ebook, this is the way it needs to be. I'm going to undo that because the way I typically make changes to a style is I will just I'll be in the chapter text thing. I will change my indentation here to 0.5, and then I'll redefine the style. So that's just two ways to update your style, and it does the same thing. Okay. All right. Now, ebooks, because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I tweaked this. I actually changed the tracking to help balance my pages on the print book. We don't need that for the ebook, so we're going to clear that. I'm going to clear that override because when it comes into the ebook, it puts extra code in there that we don't necessarily want. It's not really going to cause any issues, but I just like to have a clean document. Now, another thing to do at this point is that we have that grep style that I built into these so it wouldn't have any runts. So it wouldn't do that, this short little runt here, okay? So we need to delete that for the ebook because we do not need it, okay? You don't have to delete it, but what happens throughout your whole code in your ebook, it applies a style called no break to everything, and it just kind of makes it clunkier than it needs to be. So I like to get rid of as much as possible that we do not need. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here to the character styles. I'm going to right click on that no break style and I'm going to delete it. I don't want to replace it with anything, and I do not want to preserve formatting because it's going to create all those overrides, which is still going to make our ebook clunky, and we do not want that. So I'm going to click on OK, and you're going to see a lot of little tweaks like to me, period. That's because we don't have that code anymore that sets that prevents those runts. So now we're getting runts, but that's okay for the ebook because there's no way you can control it. That no break option that we do for the print does not work for the ebook, so there's no point of keeping that in. All right, now that we got rid of the no break, I'm actually just going to clean up the chapter text grep style, because now we still have these grep styles in, but there's no style that's applied because we deleted the no break. So I'm just going to delete these out. We don't need these anymore, so we're going to delete them out and then click on OK. It's just a little cleanup work. Now, if you notice, our page headers, page numbers are still there, but our page headers are gone. It's because I deleted that chapter title, the book title page, the title page that had the book name and the author names. But remember, these headers were in the master page, and elements do not come into an ebook from the master page. So you don't need to worry about this. This isn't going to cause any issues at all. So that's just something that is important to know. All right, so we're going to continue on. I'm going to clear this up. Now, scene breaks. I used a glyph here from a font. So this is a font. We can't embed fonts, or we shouldn't embed fonts in our ebook files. Kindle doesn't even accept them anyway. So how do I get this cute little GIF? How do I create this as a graphic? So what we're going to do, we're actually going to convert this to a graphic. And you can convert any text, any glyph into a graphic by turning it into outlines. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our little snowman here, and we're going to do create outlines. Now, lo and behold, it is a graphic, and it's actually going to come through in the ebook. Now, I am actually going to bump it up to make it a little bit bigger. And then now what I have to do is I need to go through and replace every single scene break with this. And there's a couple ways to do it. You can do, I would play around with the glyph panel. I'll eventually play around with this, and maybe I will be able to show you how to do this faster. But what I like to do is I just come into the text, find change, I find a format, and I find my scene break. Okay. All right, so we're going to go find next. Now I selected this whole entire line, including the paragraph mark, and I copied it. And now when I go find next, it has that entire line selected, and I just do a Control V and paste it, and it pastes over that entire line. So you can do this pretty quickly unless you have hundreds of scene breaks. Now, lesson for you, and this is the reason why I did it this way, is try to use graphics for scene breaks or characters that are included in every single font, like asterisks. That way you don't have to do this step. So I normally would automatically convert a scene break to a graphic before I start creating the ebook. I just wanted to do it this way so you can see the reason why it didn't come through properly and how we need to set it for the ebook. So with that being said, we want, because this is a graphic, we need to update the style. We want to set it to auto, and we know we want space before and space after, and it doesn't matter the font or anything. So I'm just going to redefine that style so it comes through as auto, so the graphic doesn't get cut off. Okay. All right, so moving on. The next thing we need to do is I have some hard line breaks in that I created to fix some of the page balancing issues and to fix some of the spaced out things, and I need to clear those out because they create issues within ebooks. So I am going to go to my Find menu, and in Word, you remember these hard line breaks were "L." Well, in InDesign, they're "N." And that's easy to find what they are by clicking on the little @ symbol here and looking through all the information that's at your fingertips here. So we know we want a forced line break. So it puts it in as "N", and we want to search the document, and so we're going to find those. All right, so whoops. Let me go back to the one I just found. Now this is the crazy thing about InDesign, is that sometimes you have to look where it's at. So here it is. I'm going to clear that. I'm going to find the next. I'm actually going to keep this one in. It's not going to hurt anything by keeping that one in, and that way it'll force this to be on its next line, so it doesn't matter. Another thing I could do is I could just hit enter and change the style to centered. All right, so here's another one. We're going to delete that one out, and then we're going to clear that override. Same here. Clear that override. You'll see this is all messed up because all our master pages are messed up now, but we're not using master pages in the ebook, so we will correct that. All right, another one, clear. And I'm fine with that. Again, we can just delete that space and then come back here and say no space. All right. So now that we have done, we have cleared those out. What I like to do at this point is just kind of flip through. We know that we need to correct the chapter titles. The chapter numbers. And we need to add the graphic, the little lights graphic at the top at the beginning of every chapter. Now, for purposes of just being able to visualize it, I am going to change this ornament. I'm going to change the style of the ornament for the keep options, because right now, if I copied and pasted this to the next chapter, let's come down here and I'll show you. It's going to be down at the bottom of the page, and we don't want that. So I am going to modify the style for that ornament. So keep option, start paragraph at the top on the next page. So it's all automatically going to go down. All right, now this is a jumbled mess because this is still on the master page. So we are actually, this time we're going to remove Braille. We don't need the light again because we already pasted it. And we're just going to change this. It doesn't matter. We can make it a C. It doesn't matter what master page it is. Okay. All right, so we're going to cut Braille. We now know this is going to be chapter 2. We know we want an image left here, and we're going to paste Braille in. All right, so clear override. All right, now what we need to do, because we have a separate drop cap for Braille's chapter, we need to go in and modify the style for that drop cap as well. So we're going to change that to ITC Avant-Garde. We're going to remove the tracking, and then everything else stays the same. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I am just going to go through the document, and I'm going to find where I have a chapter number. So we're going to find the chapter number style, and everything's going to be a blank right now, but we're going to go forward, not backward. That's a cool thing about InDesign is you can search forward and backward, which can come in handy sometimes. All right, so here we're going to just paste this. And this is going to be chapter 3. And then I'll just do these in a row to help me remember the chapter numbers. And chapter number 5. All right, so I'm going to keep on doing this. I'm sure you don't want to sit here and watch me do this. So I will come back to you when I get all this done. Okay, so now I have gone through and I have placed my lights and my chapter numbers, have redone those, so everything's complete. Now, lesson learned, and I do these things for a reason. If you do want to include graphics, using master pages is great. However, using master page, placing graphics on master pages means that it's not going to come through for the ebook. So you can, in fact, set up your book file so that the graphics are in line to prevent you from having to redo them for the ebook. I still use master pages, but you may find it a better use of your time by putting them in line just like we did here. That's up to you. Definitely numbering. You definitely don't want to set up auto numbers if you're going to do an ebook out of something, because they will not come in. Yeah, it's nice to not have to think about auto, think about numbering the chapters. I will tell you, I have seen a lot of manuscripts, and authors often think that their numbers are consecutive, but there are always mistakes. They're always duplicated or they missed one. So, having the auto number feature is wonderful to prevent that, but it doesn't work. Now, another thing that we could have done, and we probably should have done, had I been smart and thought about it to begin with, is that if you do auto number, if you have a number set up, InDesign allows you, and let's see if I can come in and kind of give you a sample of what I mean. I have some styles set up somewhere. I probably got rid of it actually. All right, so we are just going to pretend. I am actually going to turn this into a number, and we're going to tell it to restart. Continue numbering. Continue numbering. Okay. So for example, I can actually tell it to convert numbering to text, and suddenly these are no longer auto-numbered. These are actual numbers. So in this case, you can set up auto numbers for your print book, and then you can go in and modify the style and change it to text instead of a number. Okay, so that's a little tip, and that way all I had to have done was go through and add chapter right before each number. So that's something to think about. Okay. All right, let's see. Now next what we need to do is I'm actually going to take off this white just so I can see those. Like I said, we're not going to get rid of those yet because we will get rid of them in the ebook file and not the InDesign file. So the next thing I need to do, and I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me do this as well, is that I need to add in my little names throughout. So to do that, I just know I need to add them right before Zane. So we're going to find the format because we're going to find a million Zanes within the text. We're only going to look in chapter title, and we're going to find the next one. So right now, I'm just going to paste Zane before. Now, if you notice, suddenly this doesn't have the space before, and for some reason it didn't copy the paragraph style along with that graphics. So we're going to assign that image left, and then I'm going to do this again. Usually when you copy the paragraph mark as well, it will bring in the paragraph style with it, but sometimes it can be a little quirky, or I did it incorrectly and just didn't realize it. So I'm going to select this whole line again, and to do that you just triple click. Okay. All right, so we're going to do find next. And let's see if it copies it this time. Nope, it still didn't. All right, so we're going to do image left. Now, this time we're going to, instead of triple clicking, we're just going to try to select it this way and copy it. There we go. Bring it here, delete that space. All right, so I'm going to stop, and I'm going to continue to do this throughout the entire book with Zane and Braylee. You don't want to sit here for the next 5 minutes and watch me do this, so I will be back shortly. Okay, so now I have pasted Braylee's name in all her chapters. I've pasted Zane's name in all his chapters. Now what I do, I just quickly look over everything. Now remember, this is a master page, so these things are not going to come in, but if that annoys you like it does me, we can actually select every single page of our book and tell it to apply the blank master page to it. That way we won't see all of those elements anymore. Sometimes InDesign takes this little sweet time. All right. Any day now. I have a fast computer. You'd think it'd go faster than this. Okay. So now everything is set to C. So we're viewing everything. Now, the next thing I do is I just kind of search through the whole document just to make sure there's no anything that looks odd. And all of those overrides that I created by changing the tracking or changing the keep options so that my pages would be balanced, I get rid of those. So anytime where you see these little blue overrides, I just clear them. Now, if you do it properly, it looks like we have an extra light thing. So the good thing about going over it again is you'll find your little issues. We're going to clear that override. You can't, as long as you created styles for everything, you could in fact select the whole document and say clear overrides. But I don't do that because I like to do a double check of looking over everything and then I'll clear the overrides. Because sometimes, even though I try to have a good habit of creating new paragraph styles instead of creating an override, I don't always do it. So this is kind of the next check to make sure everything is good with just a clean look over. Now, if it's about efficiency for you, yeah, you could definitely select the whole document and clear the overrides. I'm just not going to do that because I know as religious as I am with creating styles for each new thing, sometimes I just forget. And I don't want to clear out any special formatting that needs to be there. So once I've done a quick overview of the entire document, I will sometimes do a select all and clear overrides then. Okay, so like here's one that is an override that I did not create a style for. And what's going to happen, let's see, what is going to happen? All right, so I didn't have a space before, so we're going to undo that. We're going to create a new style, and I'm just going to call this text 3. All right, so now remember, we changed the indents for our chapter text, okay? Now, if we look at all our block quotes, which are these text files, they don't line up anymore. So I need to go in and modify the style and add in that indent. So we're going to change that 0.25 to 0.5. Okay, and I did not have these linked, so I have to go in and change that indent and spacing, add that left indent to every single style. If I had these linked, it would have updated them all. And I think I already did this one. Yep, 0.5. All right. So here is another one. This is block quotes, and luckily all my block quotes should be linked. So I should be able to go into the master block quote and change that indent to 0.5, and it should move all of those over, which it did. Okay, so we're good there. Just continue scrolling, clear these overrides. And to be honest, I don't think I have any other overrides, but I mean any other styles that I did not define. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through and then I'll do a select all. So and just scrolling through this, you can actually see, you'll start training yourself to see errors. Like I just immediately saw that spacing issue, but for this, since this is an ebook, there's nothing we need to do about that. I will probably make a note to myself to go back and look at that line in the print book to see how that formats, if it's spaced out like that. And that's just because of the full justification settings. Is the reason why it does that. And sometimes you just have no control over it. You have to use hyphenation or split it a certain way. So, all right, we're almost there. Chapter 34. All right, so these are going to change. Let's see, we're going to just clear these overrides. clear override. We're going to call that text 3. This will be text 3. And then we're just going to clear these. All right, so there's no, and sometimes that little blue line doesn't go away until after you, for some reason, after you have scroll past it. It's just like a little delay that it gets. Okay, so hopefully that should be it. All right, so if you're good at creating styles, you don't have to do this part. You can quickly scroll through everything, unless you want to scroll through everything and just take a quick look. But what you can do to clear all the overrides at once, and we'll clear that one in our selection. All right, that's it. What you can do to clear overrides and all at once is go in your text frame, do a Control A, and Control A selects everything. Right click and click on Clear Overrides, and it's going to clear all of those overrides and not create any crazy code in our ebook file. Okay. All right, now the next thing that we're going to do, we're getting closer and closer to getting this into ebook form. The next thing I do, and it's just a matter of having a clean ebook, is I clean up my paragraph styles. When I do books, I like to have a nice, neat, organized paragraph style panel. So I use these folders and have just to help me, I have the files underneath. That way I don't have to think about it. I'm like, oh, I need a heading 1. It's under headings. Miscellaneous, I know what I keep under miscellaneous, block quotes, and etc. Now, if you're doing a big, complex nonfiction book, having your paragraph style set up like this is just definitely something that you want to do, because in some complex nonfiction books, I can have hundreds of styles. So you want it to be easy to understand. Now, having these little subfolders and paragraph styles is great for print books, but it doesn't work very well for cascading style sheets. And our names for the styles will actually be kind of weird, and we want to make it as simple and as clean as possible. So I'm actually going to get rid of these folders. So to do that, I just select all the styles underneath that folder, and then I just drag them outside of that folder. So we're going to come here, we're going to drag this one, and then we're going to come here to block quotes and drag them. Then we're going to come here to here. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to delete those folders. And it'll say delete, delete. Oh, did we miss one? Actually, let's just let me make sure I don't have anything else in there. All right, yeah, I didn't move these. So let's move these. All right, now we're going to select them and delete them. Now it shouldn't ask us. All right, so the next thing I do is actually sort this. Sort by name, and so that way they're all alphabetical. If you don't sort them, then your cascading style sheet in your ebook is not going to be alphabetical. And it's a lot easier to work with to find things when they're alphabetical. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do for purposes of the ebook is I am going to select all unused files, all unused styles, and get rid of them. But before I do that, let me come over here. Since we don't use any master page anymore except C, I'm actually going to delete all the other master pages. Because we have those headers and page numbers on those master pages, even if we don't use that style within our main text frame, it's going to keep that style in. But by deleting those pages, we do not need to, we don't have to have them in there anymore. All right, so now what we're going to do is select all unused. Now this is a lot that we're going to be able to get rid of. So this will make our style sheet a little bit smaller. So we're going to delete them. We're not going to replace them with anything, and we're going to apply to all, okay? All right, next thing we need to do is we need to take a look at how our document is going to split. If you remember correctly, we set this light as an ornament, and we told the ornament to split pages. We also have this break that tells it to split pages. So we're going to check these, okay? And I just noticed I do not have a Zane right there. So let's quickly add that in. Oh, did I not do all the Zanes? What's wrong with me? All right, I'm going to have to go in. I will correct that in a minute. For some reason, I did not do all the Zanes like I thought I did. So I'll go back and do that real quick. Here's where I stopped. Actually, you can hold on 2 seconds and we'll add them in real quick. There's only 4 to do. This is image left. Let's see if we can get it. Just 1, 2 more. I need to worry about that Sebastian one as well. All right, so I am going to do something special. I'm actually going to add that space after this back in, and I'm going to change this to, I'm going to change it to red. And I am going to set it to that underland alternatives because I want it to come through as a script. All right. So I'm going to redefine this. I'm doing this for purposes of this one chapter title only. I'm not creating a graphic with his name in it. This is just kind of a sneak preview chapter. So I'm not going to worry about anything. Now, these are hyperlinks. You can automatically set hyperlinks or you can set them yourself. You can run a search. If you click on the hyperlinks panel is under Window, Interactive, Hyperlinks. I have hyperlinks added to my toolbar over here because I use them frequently. So right now this one isn't set up as a hyperlink, so I am just going to highlight it and paste the web address here. If you have a document with a lot of hyperlinks, you can actually tell it to search for them, and it will automatically add them. I don't ever do this because it can cause issues, and I typically only want to set hyperlinks where I know I need them. In a lot of cases, hyperlinks will come through automatically, but obviously pulling them in from Google Docs, they may not come in. So if you have a lot of hyperlinks, you can actually go to your hyperlinks menu. Again, that's Windows, Interactive Hyperlinks. And since I do use it often, I have it on my workspace over here. And what you can do is just go to hyperlinks and click on the little the menu bar and go to convert URLs to hyperlinks. Search the document. If you want it to apply character style, you can. I never do. And then just click on convert all. Now I'm going to show you if there's any particular issues. The great thing is it shows you all the hyperlinks that it created. So you can actually look at them. It created one there, it created one here, and created one here, and created one here. So it didn't create any unnecessary hyperlinks. Something to look for is that in some cases, if something is formatted funny, it may consider it a hyperlink and try to create a hyperlink out of it. So you definitely want to check the hyperlinks panel after you've told it to convert all URLs. This typically happens in a really advanced nonfiction book or something with a bibliography or reference section that has a lot of hyperlinks to articles and stuff like that. So, and I've also had it where if there was a space missing from a period, so let's say this was heart period we, and it was together like that without the space, which would be an error, it would turn that into a hyperlink. So just to be aware of those particular issues that can arise when automatically using hyperlinks. And now I've done that and it's not giving me my space back. Okay. All right. So guess what? Now I believe we may be ready to export this sucker. So we cleaned up the styles. Another thing you can do is clean up character styles. So we're going to do the same thing where we select all, unused, and delete them. And then this little folder here is not used, so we can delete that as well. And then I am going to sort them by name just to make it easier. And we should be good to go. The last thing I need to do is the cover. I remember I deleted the cover out of here. So I am just going to go into Photoshop, pull up my cover and add that little advanced reader copy watermark across the front of the cover, just so people know that this is the advanced reader copy. So we're going to do that really quickly. And then what we're going to do is we are going to actually export this into an EPUB, and it's actually going to be pretty good. At that point, you do not have to update it if you do not want to. It would probably be okay to send it on to Kindle or whatever service you or your author are going to use. So Photoshop's taking a bit of time to come up. But I do a good bit of cleanup in the document before I release it to the world. And this is only because I've been doing ebooks for a very long time and I like having clean documents. And there are certain little things that the conversion that InDesign puts in the code that are not necessary, and I'll go through those and show you what they are. So I'm going to quickly pull up the cover. Again, I have not saved it properly, so I have to find where it's at. Yeah, my files are a little mess right now. And I need to spend some time, but who has time cleaning up their file system? If you do it right the first time, you never have to clean them up. And I tell myself that all the time. All right, advanced reader copy. And I'm just going to add this watermark here. We're just going to space it down. And I'm going to leave it just like that. And then I'm going to type in, it doesn't have to be pretty, do not distribute. We're actually going to change this to ITC Avant-Garde. But condensed. I'm going to just make it a little smaller. We're going to just add that there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and adjust this image size down. It's actually 600 by 900, and I'm actually going to change this to 70 or 72. Was it 150 before? I think it was 150. I'm actually going to change it to 96. So we're going to click on OK. And then we're going to save it as a JPEG or a PNG, whichever you prefer. I always just automatically do JPEG. And I am going to save it in my ebook folder that I already have set up, which is under Victoria Anders, Unwrap My Heart ebook, and I'm just going to call it cover. And it's a JPEG. I'm going to put it about a 6 medium. It doesn't have to be beautiful. And the smaller it is, the better off it is. The better off we are. All right, so now we are going to go back to File, Export, Reflowable EPUB, and we're going to name it ebook 01 EPUB. We're going to just save over the one we did before because we know that one is junk. All our settings that we had before, oops, I forgot to tell you one thing. All our settings that we had before are still in there, so we do not need to change anything other than tell it to pull in that cover. So we don't want it to rasterize the first page anymore. We actually want to choose that image that I just created. And gotta find it, JPEG. Remember, always change it to whatever file type it is down here. InDesign, Adobe, it would be really great if you could change that where it just automatically searches all files. And click on OK. And we're going to do OK, but we need to do one quick thing before this ebook is going to be worthwhile. And I'm sorry, I forgot to show you this in the paragraph feature. Let's just actually cancel this for now. We need to double check to make sure that our paragraph styles are set to break. So we know we want the underscore break and the underscore ornament to break. So to check for this, we will go to our little drop-down menu on our paragraph menu and go to edit all export tags. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to bring up the screen and show how all of these styles are going to come through for the ebook. Okay, so everything is set to automatic, which is what we want. The PDF, the EPUB is going to split on break and ornament, which is exactly what we need. We don't need to add anything to class, so if there are anything in the class fields here, just delete them out. What InDesign is going to do, it's going to call every class by the style name, so you don't need to tell it what to name it. So everything is good. So we're going to click on OK, and we're going to try it again. So export, EPUB, reflowable. We already choose the image. Everything's already set exactly how we had it before, and we're going to click on OK. All right, so I have a lot of errors. Not going to worry about some of these. This drop cap run inline style, style overrides are ignored. That's fine. We don't care about that. Inline objects like text frames groups have been rasterized. That's fine. I don't know what it rasterized, so we have to look. Unresolved hyperlinks, I don't know why it has that. And then for some reason, our text anchors are not coming through for the table of contents. So what we're going to do right now, we'll probably just quickly look at this and see if our table of contents is, all right, so it's coming through fine. Sometimes it'll produce errors on export that you just ignore. One thing I do notice is one of the things that I mentioned, that even though we had a break character down here, it still put these two pages together. So we actually need to go in and break that ourselves. So that's going to be the only thing that we probably need to fix, because it looks like everything else is on its own page. So you'll notice our little lights are here, our Zane here, but we do have Zane, so we're going to fix that. Our drop caps look a little bit better. And our scene breaks are actually the little snowmen now. So we're good there. All right, so the only thing that we need to correct at this point is we just need to dummy this. We need to come up above contents and add that break character. And then we're going to save it again. We're actually going to, before we do that, let's just see if we can get rid of that error that was coming through. It seems like in the newest version of InDesign, all the errors are, it may have some bugs in it. I just updated, oops, sorry, we have lawn people. I just updated to InDesign 2020 a couple of weeks ago, and so sometimes with new releases, they do have little bugs in them, so we just have to wait till the update. So we're going to update the table of contents again. We're going to reset this to chapter title 2. I'm going to add in our break character. We're going to save it, and then we're going to export. Okay. And hopefully now our contents should be back. Yeah. So we got rid of all those little errors. Inline objects like text frames, that's fine. We're not going to worry about that one. And then this one, we're not going to worry about. Okay. All right, so now our contents is on a page by itself. But as you notice, it's cut. See how the C is cut? We're not going to worry about that because I will tell you why that happens. And it has to do with the tracking. I'm sorry, the leading, line spacing, whatever you want to call it. So this right here is set to 24, but if we bump it up even more to like 28, it will probably correct itself. Okay, so it doesn't really matter in the long run because we are not going to be using this particular script font. And so sometimes if anything is cut off, all you have to do is go in and change that leading, the line spacing for it, and it'll come back. All right, so one more time, let's do this again. File, export. I want to export an ebook 01. Click yes. Everything's the same. Click on OK. And yes, we know about those. Okay. Now let's just see if it corrected that little contents. Yep. Well, it's still cut off, but we don't need to worry about that right now because this is not going to be the font it displays. All right, so we're going to close this, and we're going to close our file, InDesign file. We do not need it anymore for now. The key is trying to get as clean as possible in the export before you crack it open, because anything we do at this point on is not going to be reflected in the InDesign file. So, little quirk about Adobe Digital Editions. For some reason, when we open up an EPUB 3 in Adobe Digital Edition, we have trouble closing it. So I don't know if it's a bug or whatnot. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to open up that EPUB that we just created. So here it is. I am going to open file location. So this is our EPUB, and look at the size. This is less than 500 kilobytes, which is where I usually aim. So I'm not going to have to really do any tweaks to the EPUB images because I'm happy with that file size. So what we're going to do is I'm going to copy this file and I'm going to paste it. And then I am going to rename it. I'm going to call it epub.zip. So what I'm doing now is changing the EPUB from an EPUB to a zip file. All an EPUB is a zip file of HTML pages. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to extract all of the zip file, and we're going to actually look into the EPUB. Now, I use Adobe Dreamweaver because I have the Creative Cloud membership. I'm comfortable with Dreamweaver. There are some regular expressions, which is the same as grep, searches that you can run in Dreamweaver across your entire web folder, across the entire EPUB folder. So using Dreamweaver makes it easy. Okay. All right, so this is all an ebook is. It's got 2 folders, and if you embed fonts, there's a 3rd folder and it has fonts in it, as well as security things that we don't want. So if you did happen to embed the fonts, that's going to be in there as well. This meta info, it only contains this container XML file. We do not need to worry about this. We don't need to worry about this MOM type file either. All of the contents of our ebook are going to be in this OEBPS file. Okay, so we're going to double click on it. This is our entire ebook. You see all these XHTML pages. These are those individual pages that we created. Okay, so if you look, Unwrap My Heart ebook all the way down to ebook 52, these are all our pages. Then we have something called a TOC XHTML, and then we have a TOC NCX file. We have a cover HXTML file, and we have a content OPF file. So these are something that are going to be created in every ebook that you create. The content OPF is like the manifest. It tells the ebook device what all files are in this folder. I will show it to you in just a minute. The cover is exactly what you think it is. It's the cover. The navigation here, the TOC NCX, this is just a navigation menu, as well as this one. If you set it to EPUB 2.0, this TOCX HTML file is not going to come through. This is only an EPUB 3.0 thing. And then, of course, all the files. All right, then we have two folders. We have one folder with the CSS file. So this is the cascading style sheet. This is the style guide for our ebook. And then we have the image file. And this contains all of our images that are in the document. So we have our title page, and for some reason we have two snowmen. And I am actually going to delete one of these snowmen because we do not need to. However, we need to find where this third snowman 3.png is in several places and remove it. So I'm going to delete that. If I were to re-zip up the file now, we would get an error. This ebook would not validate because we have that 3.png somewhere in our book. Somewhere in our ebook file, it is referenced. So we need to remove that reference and change it to 2. All right, so here we have the cover file, our lights PNG, Braille, and Zane. I'm just going to quickly look at the file sizes of these. They're all pretty small, so I'm not going to worry about trying to optimize those. All right, so I'm making a note for that 3.png. Let's look into that first. I am going to open up Dreamweaver. And this is where my two screens come in handy, but just for purposes of me being able to keep everything on this one screen so you don't have to flip back and forth with me, we're just going to keep my folder here on this page. All right, so Dreamweaver will open up all of these files. Okay, so I am going to take a look at the content OPF page first, and I am going to show you what it looks like. Okay, if you are familiar with HTML, you shouldn't have any problems with the back end of ebooks. It should all kind of make sense to you. So this is the content OPF file. It includes the metadata. You remember we were talking about the metadata that we added? So it has the title here, the author names here, the subject, the date, the rights, the language. This is where you can go in and add a description. This is where you can go in and add keywords. Okay, so that's the metadata section. The next section of the OPF file is called the manifest. The manifest is every single file that makes up your EPUB. So all of those files that we had in that folder, including the CSS, it's all listed here. So everything needs to be listed here. Because I deleted that duplicate snowman, I need to delete the line that references that duplicate snowman here. So we're going to delete out this line because it says the 3PNG. We do not need that, but everything else we do need. All right, so then the spine. The spine is basically the order that the pages are shown as it's flipped through an ebook. So we don't need to make any changes there. And then the guide, the only thing I do is I remove this part. InDesign puts in text anchors in certain places, and we really don't need this. You can leave it in. It's not going to cause any issues. I will go into a little bit more detail about this when we're looking at the TOC pages. Okay, so in most cases, you're not going to need to make any changes to the content OPF page unless you delete out graphics like I did. But most of the time, you don't even need to open this and look at it. So we're going to save it. We're going to close it and save it. Then we're going to go back to the next thing. All right, I need to find wherever the 3.png is referenced with my ebook file. So yes, we deleted it out of the OPF file, but it's still referenced on a page somewhere. The great thing about Dreamweaver is that we'll be able to find it just by having one page open. Okay, so here's our title page. Let me change the way this is split. We want to split vertically. All right, so when I view things in Dreamweaver, I like to see what it looks like. So I have the regular view on the left-hand side, and then I have the code view on the right-hand side. All right, so to find something within the ebook, we're going to do a Control Shift F, and it's going to bring up this Find and Replace menu. What we do know we need to look for is 3.png. Now, what we want to look in is we want to look in a folder, and we're going to go to that whole folder. So we need to find it, personal, Victoria Anders, Unwrap My Heart, ebook, EPUB, and then that OEBPS folder that contained everything. That's where we want to look for this. So hit select. We're looking for this. We want a find all. And so it's referenced in three pages. So ebook 10, we're going to open up, and here it is, 3PNG. Okay. And it's also in page 15, 3PNG, and then page 22, 3PNG. Now, you could just go in and manually change that to 2. But what we're going to do, just so we get every single one of them, we're going to tell it to find and replace 3PNG with 2PNG across all the documents, and it should replace all of those. And it should tell us that it replaced it 3 times, which it did. All right, so we're going to save all these. There's nothing else we need to do right now for that 3PNG. We got rid of every instance, so we're good. All right, now let's take a look at the next thing that I do to clean up the file. I pull up this ID generated styles.css. This is the CSS file that InDesign generates. Again, if you're familiar with building web pages and you're familiar with CSS, this should not look foreign to you at all. It's basically our style sheet from InDesign. There are a couple of things that InDesign does that I remove in the style sheet, and each time I do it, I'm going to tell you why. I do go through, and you don't have to do this, but I do go through and remove all of the instances of the fonts, because I typically use fonts that no one else is going to have unless they're a designer. And to me, what that means is that if that device has that font, your ebook will display using that font. But chances of somebody having that actual font is just are pretty much, they're not going to have that font in most cases. So I just delete those instances out. If a device does not have that font, it automatically reverts to a serif. So you do not have to delete these out. I just like having a clean style sheet. So I actually delete all those instances out. So to delete out all those instances on this page, I select it from the space right before serif all the way to the quotation mark. I do a Control C. Then I do a Control Shift F. All right, so that brings it up. And we only want to look in this current document, and we want to replace it with nothing. So don't enter anything in the field. So it's going to, and then we're going to do a replace all. So it's going to go through the entire style sheet where that particular style was listed. Then I just go through and I do a search for any of the other fonts that are listed in there. And sometimes this is a little time consuming, but I get a cleaner document this way. And you can typically quickly notice where they're at. And depending on how many fonts you used in your document, will be how many you have to clean up. All right, so the next thing that InDesign does that I like to correct, just scroll through, I don't see any more. Oh, there's a few. Is it adds these page breaks in your CSS. You'll see them here: page break after, avoid, page break before, auto, page break after, auto, page break after, before, auto. You don't have to delete these out. However, these particular additions on the CSS that InDesign adds creates issues with an iPad. It puts extra spaces in the EPUB when you view it on the iPad. So I get rid of all of these altogether. I do the same thing. I select the entire line. I copy it, I paste it in the find and replace, and then I replace it with nothing, and make sure you only have it on the current document. So we do a replace all. Let's undo that. We do not want to add. All right, so replace all. And then I look for the next one, replace all. There's several different ones here. So I just keep on looking for them, and I just delete them all out. And here is one more. Again, you don't have to do this. I just do this because I don't like having those extra spaces when it's viewed on an iPad. It looks like an error, to have an extra blank page in there. I wish InDesign wouldn't put this in the code. I haven't figured a way to tell it not to. I would love for them not to include that. In the grand scheme of things, eventually, if all ebook devices read that code perfectly, it would be great, because then our ebook could be one long document and we wouldn't need to split it up into individual pages. But not all documents read that particular code. So, all right, it looks like we got them all, but one last check I make sure is I just search for a page dash, and there are no finds, so it is clear. All right, now the next thing I typically do is I add in space to the top of every page, of every chapter title page. Okay, and I'll show you another way before I do this. So as far as the style sheet is, we'll do a few additional tweaks to it in a little bit, but first we're just going to start kind of looking at the individual pages. So it would help. I recently upgraded, so it's not using Dreamweaver as my default application. All right, so what I do now is I just start looking through every page and making sure I don't need to clean anything up. So I usually open like 10 pages at a time, drag and drop, and just take a look at things. Okay. And sometimes the split view takes a while to come up. All right, so this is the copyright page. There's nothing that I need to do to this page, but there is a blank box here, okay? You'll see all this space. You can scroll down. We don't want that. It's not going to cause any errors, but it can cause extra space to be, and we just want a clean document. So we are going to delete this, and this is what I'm talking about. Any empty text boxes that you have within your document, it's going to create these. Okay, so it's creating this blank set of div tags here. So we need to make sure we delete from div tag to div tag. So here's a closed div tag, here's a closed div tag, here's an opening div tag, and here's an opening div tag. So we're deleting everything that we need to delete by selecting all 4 of those. All right. So now that box has gone away, we won't scroll. We can close that one down. Now, another thing I do across the document is I update this title. InDesign puts the name of the file in the title on top of every page. Most ebook devices do not even read this line anymore, but some of the older ones do. And that title is actually going to be like your header shown on an ebook. So on some pages it'll show ebook 3, ebook 4. Well, I just want it to show Unwrap My Heart because that's what the title is. So I'm actually going to update this line across my whole entire ebook. So to do that, we're going to just copy this line. We're going to hit Shift Control F to bring up the find field. And so it's going to find this, and we want to replace it with just Unwrap My Heart. Okay, now because we want to find this throughout the entire document, and sometimes only this page has 3, some of the other ones it'll be 4, 5, 6, or 7. Well, we can't just search for 3. So the great thing about doing these kind of tweaks in Dreamweaver is that it allows us to use regular expressions. So we will be able to search over the entire document. So we need to choose the folder that everything's in. So that OEBPS, hit select. And then now we need to figure out how we can tell it to look for a digit here. Okay, so the only regular expression you really need to know for Dreamweaver is this one: parentheses, period, asterisk, question mark, close parentheses. What that means is it's going to look for the string, this string, title, Unwrap My Heart, underscore ebook, underscore, then whatever comes next, no matter what it is, with this closed title tag. Okay. And then it's going to replace it with Unwrap My Heart. So we're going to do a replace all, and it should find it and replace it in all 50 documents. Let's cross our fingers. I know it will. So replace all. This cannot be undone. Yes. All right. So if we look down at the bottom, we will see that it in fact did work and is replaced it through all the documents. And we can double check. When we look at a file, we will see that it no longer says that Unwrap My Heart, page 8. It actually says just Unwrap My Heart. Okay. All right. So the next thing we know we need to do is we need to get rid of this particular line right here. Okay. Now, one thing I need to worry about is, let's see if I can figure out what page it's going to be on. I need to tell it what to default to. All right, Braille, nope, wrong one. All right, so this is Braille chapter 46. This was 49, so 50 should be it. All right, so this is the Sebastian chapter, the one lone messed up thing. I don't want to remove this one, and it may remove it in our find search, so I am actually just copying this code and moving it just in case our little search removes that. Okay, it shouldn't, but we'll see. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, we know we want to move this Braille line out altogether. All right, so we're going to go from paragraph to paragraph. So we need to look for the beginning of this. We don't want to remove the graphics. So here we go. So this is what we need to remove. So we're going to copy this. Now, there are these text anchors and these IDs in here. This is something that InDesign puts in to everything that generates in the TOC. And so we need to make a note to ourselves to remove those out of the TOC. And there's an easy way to do that. So we'll do that. So let's say we're going to copy this. We're going to do the find menu. And we're going to paste this. And we do not want to replace it with anything. We want to remove this line altogether. So we need to put in our little handy dandy thing that tells us to find numbers where it's changing. So we know that ID para destination number is going to change on every page. This is going to change on every page, and then it's either going to be Braley Zane or, in that one case, Sebastian. So we want to do a search for that as well. So now if I do a replace all in the folder, it should change every instance of the chapter title, and we don't need to worry about that anymore. So yes. All right. So now if we look at the pages that we have open, all of that is gone. Now let's look at that page. This is the Sebastian chapter. So it did remove our little Sebastian part, but we can add it back since I saved it. So now we have a duplicate 47. And we don't need an ID here. We're actually going to delete this. And then we don't need this anchor. Okay. So now everything throughout the whole entire document, here's one that's not removed. And it's probably, yep, it has a span class in here that it didn't find. So we're just going to delete that out individually. And yes, okay. All right, now I like to, depending on what type of graphic you have up here, I like to add in a little extra space above this graphic that will allow the page to start lower, like on a traditional book. And we can do this across the entire book by just tweaking one code. All right. So if you look at every single page, the very first div tag is this div class ID gen object style override. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go to the style sheet. Sorry about that. Certain codes shut down my little recording. All right. So go to the style sheet and look for that div tag, which is usually generally always near the bottom. So this is what it is. And the only thing that has this div tag has is this border width of 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a margin top, and we're going to make that margin top to be 15%. You can use whatever you want, 10%, 15%. What this is going to do is it's going to drop that beginning of that page down 15% of the screen. So if you probably didn't notice, but it did jump down. And if we look at every single page, because every single page uses that div tag, everything starts at 15%. All right, so we're going to do a save all again. And then the next thing I do is I just take a quick peek at every single page. There's I just like to look to make sure everything looks good and we don't have those extra div tags anywhere. We can close the style sheet now. Sebastian's chapter, our little newsletter links came through. All right, chapter 1 looks good. Unwrap My Heart. Arc looks good. The copyright looks good. All right, so we looked at files all the way to 10. So I'll go ahead and open up the next bunch. We shouldn't need to make any changes except towards the end. But I do just like to quickly look over them. Now, in looking at the size of these might be a little big. I might want them a little smaller. So I would look at to decide what size, to see what this is, to what size I need to change them to. The class is what we need. So this is the graphic, and the class is right here. So we need to go to our style sheet and look for this ID Gen Object Attribute 4. And all right, ID Object Attribute 4 is set for 52%. So it's no matter what, it's going to be about 52% of the width of any screen. That's a little big, so I'm actually going to change this to be about 35%. I think that'll work. Meh, let's do 30. That we're kind of in columns. And that worked for Braille. I'm just going to kind of continue. These might be a little big, so let's see what this attribute is. We have to look at the source code. This is attribute 3. Attribute 3 is set for 5%, which will be fine. So I'm not going to worry about that one. All right, we're going to close this one. All right, here's another Zane. Again, it didn't find it because there's an extra span class in there. So that might be a universal thing. So what I'm going to do is run another search for this. We're going to add our little, whoops, where it says 9, we're going to change that to our little grep. And then we are going to change this one to our little grep. And then Zane, we know it's only on the Zane, so we're just going to leave that there, and we're going to do a replace all. Yes. All right, so it is finding a couple, so that way now they're all removed. All right, so all of this is good. These are our texts that came through, so we don't need to worry about anything else. Just quickly look through all of these. Braille. All right, so the next round is 21 through 30, and you can open up more than 10 at a time. I've just found that 10 at a time doesn't bog the computer down too much. So we'll just quickly look. Look through these. All right, I'm going to quickly look through all these, and I know I'm going to have some at the end that's going to have some of those extra div tags, and when I find them, I will come back and I will show you what to look for and how to remove them. One thing to note, let's pull up one of these again. So this was 25. Let's see, 25. Let's just look at 26 because this will be a Zane. He's still a little big. So he uses image attribute 1. All right, so we changed Braille. Oh, wait, that's not right. He uses image attribute 2. So we changed Braille, but we didn't change Zane. So I need to go in and adjust Zane's name because it's a little large. Now, we did. The problem is that they have varying widths. So even though we changed Braille to 30%, Zane's is actually 26%. So I'm just going to kind of guess and maybe do 18%. Now, if we change this to height, the heights are somewhat similar. Braille's is going to be a little taller. We're going to drop this down to maybe 16%. And I'm just doing this based on view. And I think that's close enough. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so now that we've got those, we're going to continue to look through everything. Let's go back to where we were. And I think we looked all the way to 30, so we're going to start with 31, and we're going to drop into 40. Again, I just like to scroll through all the pages to make sure there's none of those rogue anything looks a little funny. So this one looks good all the way down to the bottom. Now, I've been using InDesign to create ebooks for about probably about 5 or 6 years now. Prior to that, we actually did them manually. we had like this whole template system set up, and we would basically copy and paste it chapter by chapter. Because when InDesign first started doing ebooks, it was a mess. They have definitely perfected it along the way, and with each new version of InDesign, it just continues to get better and better. So it's definitely more time saving to start with the InDesign file and clean it up. And then hopefully eventually we'll get to that point where we don't even need to clean it up. It'll be interesting to figure out in the future how they may figure out how to include the graphics that are on the master page in an ebook. Who knows if that will ever work properly, but it's just something to look forward to in future versions. All right, that's Sebastian's chapter. So that looks good. Our links are up. Those look good. Braley here. We're almost at the end, so we're almost done. And the last few ones that we need to look at are just these two. And here is Braley's epilogue. That one's good. And Zane's epilogue. And yes. Okay. So it was the last chapter in the book. And you'll notice there's a lot of white space. Okay, there's going to be a bunch of div tags at the end here. So if you don't want to look through every single page to verify everything looks accurate, I would recommend opening up the last page of the ebook file, because it's going to have, in some cases, a bunch of blank div tags that are not needed. Again, it's not going to produce any errors. It's just about creating a clean document. And you want to make sure you delete the right number of div tags. This div tag is open and closes here, so we know we can delete that. And then this div tag is open and closed here, so we can delete all the way to that. And then this div tag actually is at the very beginning, so it's closed. So for every ebook page, if you're not familiar with HTML, you need an open tag and then a closed tag for everything. So here's an open div tag, closed div tag. Here's the open body. And then here, HTML, and HTML is all the way at the top. Okay. All right, so now everything looks good. The last thing we need to do is we need to make a couple of tweaks on our TOC pages. So I'm actually going to open up both of these TOC pages. Now, this is another step that you don't have to do, but I need to do it because I actually removed all of my anchors that were in the chapter title pages, because I actually removed the chapter titles and I replaced it with that graphic. And so since I removed the chapter titles, those anchors are no longer there. So I need to remove this extra code that's on my navigation pages. So on that TOC XHTML page and the TOC NCX. So to do that, we just need, what this is this is telling basically what on the TOC page within the ebook, it's saying if the user clicks Zane on this list, open up this this ebook for XHTML page, okay? And then what it's also saying is open it up to this anchor that's titled ID Paradestination -1. But we deleted the anchor, and so if we were to create the ebook again at this point and run it through a validator, we're going to get errors because it's going to tell us that it cannot find this anchor. So we need to remove these anchors. Now, if you do nonfiction books where you have a table of contents that has not just the chapter titles, but the heading 1s, the heading 2s, and heading 3s, don't ever do this step. This is mainly only for novels. And the other reason why I remove these for novels is because when they click on Braley, it's going to open up to where that page anchor is, which was where the chapter title is. So they're not going to get the view of the lights. They're not going to get chapter number. They're just going to get the name. if we hadn't removed it. So they're kind of missing the effect of the whole top part of the chapter, which is silly to think, but I like things to look a certain way, so that's why I removed these. All right, so what we're going to do to remove these, we're just going to select this first one, we're going to copy it, we're going to bring up our find menu, which is Control-Shift-F, and we're going to use our little handy dandy little grip thing that I taught you, where is paren, period, asterisk, question mark, close paren, and we are not going to replace it with anything, and we are going to tell it to look in the current document only. So, I have an error. I did not do that properly. So if you notice here, these numbers are still here. So that's a problem. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm actually, to prevent that problem, I'm actually going to copy a longer string, okay? So I'm going to go from XHTML number underscore all the way to that close quotation mark. So we're going to copy that, do our find again, and this time we are going to put our little thing there, but this time we need to actually replace this with some. So we are going to remove from the pound sign all the way to the quotation mark. So it's going to end XHTML quotation. That's what we want to replace. So it's going to get rid of this string altogether. So we're going to do a replace all, and there we go. That's exactly what we need. Okay. So now it's just telling to open it to that page and not where that page anchor was located. Okay. All right, so now we're going to look at the other TOC file. So we corrected it in the NCX file, and now we're going to correct it in the XHTML file. And it's basically the same thing. We're going to copy, and we are going to replace the same thing. And all right, and then we're going to do a replace all, and there we go. Now that's all cleaned up. Now, one more little one to delete out, and then we're good to go. All right, so we're going to save that. All the pages are saved. Now, how do we get this back into an ebook? Well, we're going to go to the main ebook EPUB folder and make sure they're sorted. Don't change the sort order where the MIME type is up top. You need for it to be in this order before you zip it. Don't ask me why. There'll be an error when you validate it if you do it out of order. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this MIME type file. We're going to right click on it, and we are going to say send to zipped folder. Okay, and so it's going to say mimetype.zip. All right, now there are programs. There's one called eCan Crusher that this will do automatically. I have been doing this for so many years that it's just second nature to me. So this is the way I do it. You may find some easier ways to do it, and that is fine. This is just the way I do it. All right, so now that we have this mimetype.zip, the only thing that is in this zip file right now is this mimetype file. So what we're going to do is we're going to just select the meta .-inf file, and we're going to drag it and we're going to drop it into the zip file, and then we're going to select one at a time the OEBPS and drop it in the zip file. And now you'll notice that our file size goes up to the 433. Then what we're going to do is we're going to rename it Unwrap My Heart EPUB 01, because I name everything, and then period EPUB, we're going to change it back to the EPUB. Okay, then it's going to say, as you've changed a file extension, this file may become unusable. Yes, yes. It's not going to become unusable because an EPUB is just a zip file. All right, so now we are, let's close things here. I've got too many things open, the story of my life. I want to get to my desktop because I have a program called EPUB Checker. This program is will validate your EPUB. There used to be a website that you could use, but it's offline now. So I just have this little program. that will tell me it needs to be updated every once in a while that I use called EPUB Checker. And you can actually go to, you can download this as well. Just go to, let's see, Pagina, and I think this is Dutch. I don't know what language, maybe German. And then just translate it, and then the English version of the EPUB checker is down towards the bottom. This Windows download, this is the one I have, okay? And then it just creates the program on your desktop, and when you open it, it brings this here, and all you have to do is drag your EPUB holder over and drop it, and then it'll run the validation. All right, now, we have errors. I hate it when there's errors. Most cases, if you don't do a lot of cleanup in your ebook, you're not going to have errors. But sometimes I make mistakes when I look for things, and errors happen. So we have to look at what the error is. And in here, says fragment identifier is not defined, and it's on the ebook-2 XHTML page. So we're just going to open that up because it's going to tell you exactly where the error is. And in some cases, one error, it might correct, just one little change will correct the rest of the errors. So we have to see what it is. All right, so it is in our contents page that's within the ebook. Now, this is different from the two TOC files that we looked at before. Those two TOC files are navigation menus that the reader uses. So when you click on table of contents on the reader and look at the lists, that's what they see. This page is different. This is just the table of contents page within the ebook itself. And I did not remove those text anchors on this page like I did the other two. I forgot to do that. So now I can do exactly what I did to the other ones. We're just going to copy this. We're going to bring up our little find and replace, and we are going to change that number series to our little grep code, and then we're going to delete it out. So we're just going to replace this with this, and then we're going to do a replace all in the current document. And then we're going to, actually we have a div tag here, so it's a good thing. I must have not have looked at this page very well. All right, so now everything is good. So we're going to close that. Now, all of these errors are the same thing. It was, if you just look at it, it says all the file tells you that the error is in the ebook 2. So you just look at all those errors and every single line. I just corrected that with that one simple search. So what we have to do at this point is we need to actually re-zip the EPUB before we check it again. So every time you make a change to the EPUB, you need to re-zip it for that change to be in effect. So that may be where some of those EPUB crushers may work better. I don't know. I've never used them. I've just always used my own method. But, you know, you may find a better option of doing that. So I'm going to keep the file name the same. I'm going to go back to my EPUB checker, drag and drop, and then hopefully we'll get an all clear. Yep. Okay. No errors or warnings detected. EPUB is valid. So we are good to roll. Now what I'm going to do is, because this is an ARC, typically what you can do is take the EPUB and upload it to Kindle, and Kindle KDP will automatically change it into a MOBI file for you. But since this is an ARC and I actually need to have the MOBI file myself to send out to people, I use Kindle Previewer to create the MOBI file. So to do that, just open up Kindle Previewer, and we are going to drag the EPUB over and drop it in. And it does take a little bit to correct it. I meant to create it. Now I'm getting older, And I swear my brain just forgets words all the time. Does anybody else have that problem? Um, all right, so here we go. We're going to zoom out. So this is our ebook. This You can scroll through it and check it out and make sure you're happy with the way it looks. You'll see our spacing for those paragraph indents are much better than they were before. The size of the graphics there's one error. So chapter 2, I need to remove Braille. And this is why I like to look through, because sometimes errors just happen, and I know why Braille did. There's probably some span class that didn't find itself in my search, but I'm not going to show you all that correction because this is good enough for our purposes. So what we're going to do now to create a MOBI file out of this, just go to File, Export. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come down here, and this is the newer version of Kindle Previewer. And before, it only gave you the option to export it as a MOBI, but now it's giving you the option to export it into a KPF as well as an AZK file. But we just want to export it to a MOBI because we want to be able to send that MOBI to people who have a Kindle, and that's the file type we need. All right, so when I save it out as a MOBI, I change EPUB to KNDL, so I know that's the Kindle file, and then I export. And there you have it. You now have an EPUB file and a MOBI file ready to send out to the people who have signed up for my ARC. Okay, so that is it. My best advice with ebooks is to create, if you have to update your ebook, come in here and create an old folder, and then move these older ones to your old folder before you create a new one. And then on your new file, name it EPUB 02 and Kindle 02, just so you know that those are the newer files. And I have discovered that with KDP, if you do not give your revised file a new name, I've had issues where it hasn't updated to the proper ebook file. So that's something to keep in mind. It's always good to create a new file with a new number. So that's why I use that numbering system. So I can have, I'll have all the way up to 100 if needed. I hopefully would never need that many, but just in case. So that's it for this little interior formatting. I will probably add a lot of videos along the way for different things. Some of my plans are to go through all the free options on how to format, such as Reedsy, Draft to Digital. I may even check out Vellum, just to show you all the different options and do a nice comparison of what is available, and that way you can determine, based on your skill set, based on what you're comfortable with, based on the amount of time you want to put in something and the amount of investment you want to put into things. It will help you determine what way is the best way to format for you personally, because not everybody is the same. I choose to format this way because I've been doing this for many years, and I prefer to have the most professional product out there. And you are going to get the most professional product with a book that has been formatted in InDesign. It's just the truth. Yeah, I know all you Vellum users love it, and I think it's wonderful, but it does have its limitations. So if you want the best formatted books, I definitely recommend using InDesign. Now, if you find yourself wanting the best formatted books, but you just do not want to take the time, it's just too much to do, I do formatting, so contact me. I would love to work with you and put together your books for you. So definitely contact me, and we could definitely build a formatting relationship. If you want to set up one-on-one training with me, don't hesitate to contact me as well. And if you have any questions, just get stuck. My doorbell rang. There goes the dog. So that is the perfect time to end this. So if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can look for Stephanie Anderson on Facebook, and feel free to personal message me. And if I'm available, I will be able to help you. All right, take care.